A lovely good afternoon to you. Thank you for locking on to Camnet TV, your #1 community TV station in the country. And we're back on your screens on a Tuesday with the Lunchtime Cafe. And I'm sitting in for Kozi Makokwa. I'm your host for today, Nelson Zulu. We've got a funny-packed show altogether, full of information. And as we get to also endeavor or dive into conversations relating to how the education sector is and all those stories, we get to look at them. And at a later stage also, we'll be able to jump directly into some of the forgotten stories, the emerging stories as well, and begin to give you insight on all these issues because we know they're very important to you. Remember that you can catch us live on our Facebook platform, that is Camnet TV, on YouTube, that is Camnet TV as well, and not forgetting on DSTV, that is channel 274, God TV channel 25, as well as Topstar channel 106. But for now, let me just be about to usher my guest in, and we'll be back shortly as we discuss everything literacy in Zambia.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kids show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamagaza, to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Thank you so much for staying glued to Camnet TV, and we're back and we go directly into our first interview this afternoon as we look at literacy in Zambia and what it really means out there to you parents and nation at large, and what it also entails when it comes to the development of our country. We know that pronouncements have been made, also agendas have been set in line with the education and developing the country. But to help us understand this topic, I'm not alone in the studio. I'm joined by Madam Ingutu Kalumiana from the Ministry of Education. Hopefully I've pronounced that right.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Yes, how is the Ministry of Education?
Oh, the ministry is doing well.
No.
It's taking.
Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And that's Madam Ingutu, and on my far left, I'm also joined by the ZANEC, others call it the Zambia National Education Coalition Executive Director, Mr. George Hamsunga. Good afternoon, Mr. Hamsunga.
Good afternoon, thank you, and good afternoon to viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much for making time with us.
No, the pleasure is ours. This is our job.
Sure.
Yes.
Let's start this conversation with Madam Ingutu. We know this is part of the monthly marathon when it comes to issues of literacy, because we're in the literacy week. Just last Friday we saw the commemoration of the International Literacy Day. What is literacy for starters?
Thank you very much. I would want to share that literacy, it is the ability to read, to write, and do a bit of arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in schools, you are aware that the first thing the teacher would want to do is take the children out there so that they could scribble in the soil and eventually that they can spell out what they have written. So it is that ability that when one is able to read, to write, and to do a bit of arithmetic.
Okay, quite interesting. And I know this is one particular subject that even this government is very much particular about. Dr. Hamsunga, I know you're also part of the grassroots that have been providing statistics in terms of how we're faring as a country when it comes to the education sector. How do you feel in terms of how we've fared as a country in promoting literacy, especially to rural areas? Because most of the time, these are areas that regard themselves to be the marginalized.
That's a very important question. Literacy is very important, as we have heard. It is about, people knowing how to read, and if you can't read, It means that you can't operate a phone. You can't receive a message from a phone and be able to read on your own. It is about people being able to do simple arithmetic or do numeracy, which is about transacting. It's about buying and selling. You can't buy and sell if you do not know numeracy, if you don't know how to, how to calculate. And this is quite important for our rural areas. And as you have said also, in literacy we talk about speaking and communication. And literacy provides skills that allow our people to be able to speak or to be able to communicate information. And that becomes very important because speaking and talking are two different words. In speaking, we are communicating information. In talking, we are making noise. So you can see that literacy actually is quite important. But like you have asked, it's important for us to reflect on what government has done or the progress that we have achieved. We know that, of course, the ministry has the mandate to provide literacy throughout the country, but I must mention that a lot of achievements have been done, but there is a lot that still remains to be done, especially in the rural areas because of the challenges that we have, for instance, with people valuing education, in adult age, with people valuing going back to school, especially the men. We have seen, of course, that the women are the hardest hit in terms of illiteracy, wherever. Some research actually, say about 66% of the illiterate population are women. And that's why we find most of them are the greatest beneficiaries in the programs that ministry is doing in rural areas. We don't see many men, although we also have a fair share of men who are in fact not literate. So we still have a huge gap that needs to be addressed, and that comes as a result of the lack of resources for us to invest in this important subsector, of our education system.
Well, quite important. I know this day is internationally celebrated on the 8th of September every year. And this year's theme was focused or was anchored on the issue of promoting literacy for a world in transition, building the foundation for just and peaceful societies. From the Ministry of Education point of view, I know you are Assistant Director of Open and Distance Education, that is DODE. What is the importance of this theme and how do you interpret it?
Thank you very much. Every year we have a theme, and that gives us a very strong reflection on the efforts, on the successes which we are making. And like my colleague has mentioned, that we have to continue with this issue of literacy, because we do not want the country to go back to where we began from, especially during post-independence. So basically our theme is targeting us to say that let's promote literacy. Why? So that we can have sustainable and peaceful societies. So by so doing, we know that in our communities, people will be peaceful, because you can imagine if you have two groups, the control group and the experiment group, a group which is literate and a group that is not literate, you would find that you have a lot of challenges to push in information into that group which is illiterate. And we usually say that illiteracy is really a vicious circle of poverty. Hence, we are propagating the issue of literacy so that it can push the agenda for us, for people to interpret information wherever they are. And we are saying in a world that is in transition, implying that at all times there are various factors, there are various forces which exert pressure on this globe that we are living on, our world. But for someone who is illiterate, is able to analyze, is able to interpret, and is able to adapt, thereby translating into sustainable and peaceful society, because we have to live in harmony, and we know that education is the cornerstone, the issue to read, the issue to write. Wherever you are, then you know how to signal information even to your next colleague. So for us in education, it is really a cornerstone for development. at personal level and also at national level.
Having explained that, I'd like to shift to Mr. Hamsunga there to help us understand. I know ZANIC has been one of those organizations that we've had that has been staunch on issues relating to quality education and as well as access. How do you interpret this theme?
Well, for us, I think it's a very timely theme, especially that we are coming from COVID-19 to start with, where we need to start talking about digital learning. We need to start talking about the fact that when we reflect on what happened during COVID-19, for instance, you will agree with me that what went wrong was that we had to, struggle to get parents to support our learners to ensure that there is continuity of learning in our homes. And that happened because most of the parents are not educated themselves. And most of the parents also are not technologically savvy. And adult literacy now comes in handy, even post-COVID now, as we embrace what we are calling blended learning.
Yes.
The learning that should combine both the face-to-face and also continuity of learning in homes, where we need now to empower the parents. Because what we saw actually, what made, education systems the whole world fail, one of them was that we needed digital skills in the teachers to be able to embrace technology and use it to provide continuity of learning in homes. The teachers didn't have those skills. We needed the digital skills among learners to ensure that the learners are able to access certain platforms, online, to be able to, ensure that they continuously learn. We didn't have those skills in the learners. And unfortunately, also the parents in the homes where the learners were did not have those skills, so the learners could not benefit. And now in this transition, as we are coming from COVID, what we are saying is that can we support adult literacy so that functional learning can also focus on providing digital skills to our learners, so that we can broaden the scope of learning beyond the classroom and ensure there's continuity of learning in our homes.
I like the fact that you've brought about the issue of blended learning. One might argue, and maybe from my end, I've got my grandmother who is 55 or 45, and then unable to read, saying there's free education, go back to school, there's blended learning, you can still learn with your grandchildren. Now, so that's
well, and this is, what you are talking about is very important. There are some people who have lived all their lives, being scared or being, fearing to be laughed at. It must be made very clear that adult literacy really is as good as formal education itself, especially if it can address the real needs of people where they are. Because what adult literacy does is that it looks at the local environment and gives people information only which they need for them to perform better and be able to earn good livelihood, be able to support families better. So, and this is why now what we are saying is that the advantage with digital learning is that your grandmother will not need to wear a uniform to go to a building. Now he can be at home. He can open a radio from a feature phone. And this is why we are saying one of the things that we want to see the ministry do is to have, the education broadcasting, services given a nationwide license to be able to deliver lessons countrywide. So that people, just using a feature phone, they can learn a lot about what is happening. And we want also your grandmother to have skills. For instance, after growing the beans, he must know before he goes to the market how much the beans is selling at that market, because he belongs to a WhatsApp group where there are members, or where there are marketeers countrywide.
Yeah.
And he can't start off if he knows the price is not good. So those are the skills that you don't really need to enroll in grade 1, wear a uniform and to benefit. You just need to embrace adult literacy, and this is what we want to see more happening in our country.
If you're still joining us, this is the Camnet TV Lunchtime Cafe, a show that comes to you every weekday from Monday to Thursday, just to highlight some of the issues that are happening. And on set, I'm joined by Mr. George Hamsunga from the Zambia National Education Coalition, that is ZANIC, as well as Assistant Director in the Directorate Open Distance Education, shortcutted as DODE. Yes, but I'm Ingutu Kalumiana. Just trying to help us understand the importance or the status of literacy in Zambia. I would like to come back to you, Assistant Director. One of the issues that one might be asking there is that, in as much as we're observing this theme, but how do we promote literacy for a world that is in transition? Because this world is not constant.
Very correct and important issue.
Mm.
And for us who are in education, we have a curriculum. Usually our curriculum is informed by the needs that society needs. And we also have a platform where we have our stakeholder engagement. So basically what we have in our curriculum has a direct response to the needs of the people of Zambia. And this curriculum is not static because we have short-term, we have long-term reviews so that we monitor, we evaluate how it is impacting on our society. And I'm pleased to inform you and the nation that right now on our card is the curriculum reform program. And part of it is to ensure that even our youth and adult literacy program does respond to the needs of the people of Zambia. But I'm quick to indicate that the curriculum that is still running is responding well to our youth and our adults, because within 6 months or so, they are able to break through, to read, to write, and to do a few things like my colleague has indicated here. Mm-hmm. Because when they come to the center, they come with a purpose for them to get back to school, like your grandmother will come with a purpose. Mm-hmm. And the purpose for some of them is to really transact at the market so that they can have benefits of what they are doing. For some it is to read the Bible, for some is to continue with their education from grade 4 right to climb the ladder of educational attainment. So in terms of changes, in terms of impact on our world in transition, really the shocks will be absorbed as we reform the curriculum so that we ensure that what we provide does respond. For example, in the curriculum for our youths and adults, we have included functional literacy so that they can also walk out with a skill. Mm-hmm. It may be tailoring, it may be carpentry, it may be fishing, which has got direct impact onto what they do in their day-to-day life. So I believe really the curriculum is sharpened around the societal needs as well as personal requirements.
It's interesting that you've also brought out the issues of curriculum reforms, because for some time people have been questioning or have been raising questions. Why should I go to school and learn about Kenya Pithakas, learn about Homo habilis? Is this thing helping me at the end of the day to make ends meet in society? So these reforms, what should be the outlook when it comes to the general citizenry out there?
I'm sure your comment is in line with what is happening from our policymakers, mm-hmm. starting at national level, even up to line ministries, and in particular the Ministry of Education. So we have reviewed and we have also interacted with our stakeholders. Of course, I was teaching geography myself, and you talk about the prairies, which are not here in Zambia. Mm-hmm. You talk about the rainforest that you may not have experienced, but I'm sure our pioneers that time, they saw the need because the country and the globe was still locked up. So probably the idea that time and the ideology was that you could have some information of how people lived elsewhere. But as we are moving in line with our theme, that the world is truly in transition, there are certain things which we have to weed off, but embrace those which we feel we can move with. And that's why we have provided for curriculum reform, so that time and again we review and take stock of the successes which we can carry on with, but the challenges which we may have had, then we turn them into opportunities and we move on. So basically the curriculum that we have for the youths, we believe it has responded quite well, but we are not adamant to close it up, because we have opened it to the public so that we can have input and move forward with what is really needful for our Zambian society.
Well, you can still come through to give us your contribution, your say on literacy in Zambia. We know there's a free education out there, and there are a lot of opportunities that are being brought forward, just like Madam Ingutu is explaining, to say there's also the introduction of blended learning, where my grandparent, for example, can still go back to school and get some skills and make ends meet and make benefits in as far as the development is concerned in our country. And I like the fact that you also brought out the issue of transitioning and everything, but I would like to shift to Mr. Hamsunga. You know, there's this tradition for some time that one has to actually go to class for them to learn. Do you think it's going to be easier for us to transition as a country and ensure that we begin to embrace technological advancement and ensure that we are literate to a later stage?
Yes, I can assure you that 50 years from now, we will not be, talking about concrete and mortar, in the education sector. We will be talking about, how a teacher can be anywhere and a child can be anywhere, and they can learn in their homes, and they can also be assessed in their homes, and they can get certified, within the homes. Because this is where the world now is going, and it's very important. And this is why we are saying, if we can't invest in adult literacy, if we can't invest in decent education, if we can't invest in blended learning, then we will be left behind, because we'll be the only country, when we go at international level, asking for money to build classrooms, because others would have advanced. So, and this is why we are saying, let's start with radio, which covers all, the people, and in terms of access, even during COVID, if you look at all the studies, it had the highest. When you look at all the forms of alternative modes of education provision, like television, as well as online. So now we know that if we can start with radio by ensuring that EBS can air programs countrywide on daily basis, that would be a huge step for us to embrace, blended learning. But let me also add that, literacy, when we talk about transition, we are also talking about climate change, and let's not leave the climate change aspect. And it's something that, environment is part of the, adult literacy, curriculum now. What we want to ensure in that curriculum is that we give the opportunity for people to realize that even agriculture now has to be looked at differently, because of the adverse effect of climate change that are manifesting themselves in form of frequent floods, as well as long dry spells. And therefore, these are the skills that we want to give the people, so that they are not left behind in terms of ensuring that they keep their productivity levels, as high as they used to be.
Well, you mentioned about policies that the Ministry of Education is formulating or maybe reviewing to ensure that we garner forward with aspect of development and promoting literacy. What other policies are there that have been placed to ensure that this noble cause in the name of literacy is promoted?
Okay, a very important question, and I would want to assure the nation that the ministry, its policies, resonates rightly with what we are propagating here. In terms of youth and adult literacy, I would want to indicate that it is a subsector. What I mean by subsector is that it is an educational provision which is settled and is anchored, and it is in the Ministry of Education. So that on its own gives direction that all our youths, all our adults have an opportunity to come and learn, because the ministry has included that delivery system for the people out there. Then in terms of literacy, we have literacy programs because they are enshrined in our curriculum. So the curriculum in itself is part of the policy that we have. So we know at the lower levels, grade 1 to grade 4, also for our youth and adults, the policy is that they should be taught in the Zambian language. So I'm able to assimilate I'm able to learn in the language that is familiar to me. So part of it is that we teach in our approved Zambian languages. Why? Because it is easier. That is the language I have at home. That is the language that I'll have in my classroom, which may be anywhere, anytime. So partly, those are some of the policies which government is propagating, but we have a number of them which are drawn from the main policy of education.
Among some of the key things that you're looking at as far as transitioning is concerned in the world of education is entrepreneurship and ICT. We still find that there are communities that are not ready to embrace this change. We still find that there are people that still unable to embrace such tools as part of emancipating the importance of literacy. Now, how do we position ourselves as the ministry to ensure that these people also begin to tap in and begin to have that knowledge or encouragement to ensure that they delve into such policies that you're providing?
Very good, and thank you very much. My colleague here did emphasize the issue of technology and how we saw the challenges going by the effects of the COVID-19, which pushed us to raise the agenda of integrating the use of technology. I would want to indicate to the nation that as government and as also a Ministry of Education, we've already integrated technology into our delivery system, right from early childhood education and running through all the subsectors. So in terms of technology, we have computer studies, and for me, I come from a directorate called Open and Distance Education, and where technology is the driver of our education delivery, where we are propagating use of various platforms, the radio being mentioned here, of course, even mobile learning using smartphones, and many other tools that we can talk about. And I think as government, we saw also our president launch the internet there at Munali. So all these efforts are indicating to us that we should not remain behind, but we should embrace technology because we know the benefits which are associated with our technology. But of course, in the transition state, we'll have challenges here and there, but we are working around the clock to ensure that we are moving step by step to our desired vision of ensuring that we shall have smart classrooms, we shall have smart learners, even for our youths and adults, because you see, they come in the afternoons to learn, and what happens in the morning? They are in their day-to-day enterprises, in their entrepreneurship, but they are coming to get a skill. So it is also ideal for them to ensure that even as they move back to their homes, they are able to get the messages on the phones. I can follow them up as a teacher. They can also follow my lesson. And this is the kind of environment and vision which we aspire to be. And we've already started our journey on this trajectory. So basically, as Minister of Education, I think we are on course. Of course, we know there's so much ahead of us, but I think the efforts, the commitment is already there. One, technology has been recognized, so it is non-negotiable. That is the way to go. And the efforts showing that indication is that we have integrated it in our curriculum as a standalone subject, which is computer studies, but also the directorates involved do tap into technology in one way or another. But specifically, we have a directorate that is dedicated to ensuring that the issues of technology are propagated, where we can develop platforms, where we can use the radio, where we are using the television, and we can boast of also our educational television, which is sitting on ZNBC, which is TV4. So all these efforts are informing us that we would want to reach out to every citizen, irrespective of where they are, because even just simple technologies can still aid them to get the information, to get the literacy messages that are required.
You spoke about literacy, very passionate. And one of the thorn issue after the reintroduction, for lack of a better term, I'll say the reintroduction, because I know free education was there at some time and then it was reintroduced. Others have argued that after this reintroduction of free education in the country, we've seen over-enrollment of pupils into schools. We've seen the teacher-pupil ratio go higher. We've seen also the hours of learning being reduced. What is your take in terms of this act being there and promoting the aspect of literacy in the country?
Thank you very much. I think this is a topical issue which is around the corners. Being a parent and also being an educationalist, we have interfaced with this issue where people are raising their voices to say, oh, the classrooms are full, oh, this and that. But one would always want to ask to say, supposing there was no free education policy, supposedly we didn't have this situation, what would be the other side of the coin? Where were all these learners? So how do we look at it? For me, it would be a piece of bread would be better than not having that piece at all. So equally for our children out there, the Zambian population that were denied the human right to dignify their lives, of coming to get this very important tool called literacy associated with the agenda for education, that it is very, very important that we have opened doors. Of course, we are very much aware of what you are raising, and I think our ministry through our policymakers are working around the clock, and that's why we are constructing more schools, and that's why there's so much effort towards procurement of materials, various programs which are targeted at ensuring that quality is upheld in our education system because of the Education for All policy which has come back, which we have. So for me, it may be a challenge, but it is a great opportunity for the people of Zambia that their lives are being dignified, and what is a right and assured investment for all is being given, than denying them an opportunity to read their name, to write, and also to get direction, to interpret information from the hospital, because I have interacted with illiteracy. It's difficult to describe it, but the best is to ensure that we eradicate it, because the vices are terrible. When you meet it in your door or nearer or in your household, it is not good. So the best, let's all rally behind what we are saying as government, as Ministry of Education, to say here is an opportunity, even for our youths who are loitering streets, our adults who are not able to help their children at home because they cannot turn the page. We still have an opportunity. And for us as Ministry of Education is that the sun will not set until we give education to everyone. And doors are forever open. Whoever comes will receive them, because education is for all.
Madam Mingintu is just explaining about the free education, the challenges that have also come with it, being opportunities that it is leveraging on and ensuring that it promotes different pieces of how people should be able to respond to this. As Zanik, what's your position on the issue?
Well, first and foremost, I think the declaration of free education from early childhood education to secondary is a great milestone for this country, especially from where we stand as ZANEC, because this declaration has not just been verbal. You know, it has been followed with a lot of resources that have gone directly to the schools to try and mitigate, you know, some of the challenges that came with it, and also to compensate schools for the loss of income that, you know, they have experienced as a result of declaring free education. So on that score, we are very happy that the ministry really has done quite a lot. But of course, we know that the challenges still remain, especially those relating to the pressure on education inputs of quality, in this case, the teaching and learning materials, the desks, the classroom space, and you know, the teachers, notwithstanding the 30,000 teachers that we were able to recruit last year. So what we really want to see is that the ministry need to have a plan, a very robust plan that is going to help them start addressing these problems in a more progressive manner. And when we say a plan to address, we are aware of the fact that the ESSP, came to an end, and now they are doing a new plan. But I think what is important for the ministry is really to be able to explain to the stakeholders that this is the roadmap we have to address the issues that are there. But we know also that overall funding has increased. In the last 2 years, 2021, the budget was around 13 billion. 2023, the budget now is at 23 billion. In the last 2 years, it has increased by 10 billion. And that is a huge increase. But what we are saying is that the increase of the budget must be accompanied with medium and long-term clear, plans to address, these problems, so that the stakeholders do not become impatient, because you can tell us what you can do in 2024, what you are going to do in 2025, and what you are going to do in 2026. And then that way, we are going to be assured that we are addressing these issues progressively. But also to address them better, and this is important, we need data and evidence. We are all saying that we have over-enrolled, there are so many pupils that have gone there. Between you and me, if we try to look for the actual figures, how they stand per grade, so that we can know how to address, you'll find that we'll have conflicting figures. And this is why we are saying that ministry also must invest in data and evidence, because it aids effective planning, and effective planning, aids, the progressive way that you can address, the problems, especially amidst a limited resource envelope.
Well, I'm sure even the Ministry of Education is taking notes, because I have an assistant director here. Yes, just trying to put all those issues. And as far as they are taking notes, let's also look at, I know the Ministry of Education, ZANEC, also makes analysis in terms of how far we've gone as a country in terms of the education sector and everything. Are there any differences in terms of literacy among females and males currently?
Yes, please. I would say that men, the male, they stand a better chance compared to the female. We have some statistics which we can share with you. Reasons being that historically, if we look at our various factors in society, have been disadvantaging the females. For example, our cultural practices at home would ensure that, we send the boy child to school. So those, over time, we are now feeling the impact of such vices. Over time, the early marriages, the pregnancy issues, the marrying of our girls, and many others compared to the male. So that has contributed greatly to the education of the male folk compared to the females. Anyhow, for us, we would want parity, which is 1, so that at least male, female are balanced. But we are beginning to see some change because of various interventions. As we noted these gaps over time, you are aware that we even introduced the re-entry policy for the girls, so that they can still re-enter school. We have various catch-up strategies for the girl child right now under the World Bank. We have also a program for the girls to come back, those who have fallen pregnant or were married, and many other interventions such as the reusable issues of sanitary. Why? So that the girl child can still be retained in school. So going forward, we may have a balance, and that's why for us, we keep on checking the system and ensure that the interventions are stronger and stronger, so that both the male and the female can balance up. But currently, our statistics indicate that in terms of youth and adult literacy, we get that information from Zambia Statistical Agency. Of course, they are still collecting the information for the recent national census, because that's where we get those statistics. But indications of some preliminary information indicate that we still have more male having a higher upper hand in terms of educational attainment compared to the female. Also in our youth and adult literacy centers, we have more females coming to the program compared to the men. But of course there could also be a stigma of issues to say my child is also going to school. At implementation level, of course, we test many variables which affect our programming. So those could be some of the issues, the factors that we are able to see. But I'm sure when we carry out surveys, we can have detailed information. But what we are saying is the program is available for both the male and the female, because we are equal partners in development. In fact, when you educate a woman, you have educated thousands, because that is what we have done. You know, we have taken many to school.
Why not educate a boy? Because we might be focusing too much on the girls and then shooting the
leaving
boys.
behind the boys.
Yes.
Yeah, so they are equal partners. Yeah.
That these disparities, Mr. Hamsunga, and I know for a fact that you also have your own inputs that you feel should be the right step to take.
Yes, currently if you look at enrollments at grade 1, you'll see that we have more girls than boys across the board. And when you look at performance, you also at grade 7, at grade 9 and grade 12, in the last 2-3 years, the girls have been leading. And really this speaks to the fact that the interventions that we have put as a country to promote, you know, gender equity in the education sector is working. But now we need to be very careful, because we may reach again another stage where the boys are going to be left too far away. And therefore now that we have seen that at enrollment, actually now the problem really has everything to do with the fact that our education systems, you know, it lacks efficiency. It cannot keep our children for a long time, especially the females, because of the problems that, you know, the assistant director has ably, you know, articulated. But we have achieved a lot in terms of bringing them to school. We just lose them. If we can find means and ways of keeping them through and through, we can say that we are doing very well. But now we need to refocus and say that even as we promote the girls and we continue to do that, let's not forget, you know, the boys as well. So we expect our member organizations that are working on gender not to only concentrate on girls now. If they were doing 100% girls, they need to give the 30% also to boys, so that we don't get to another stage where the boys are going to be far behind.
Whilst making that submission, what clicked into my mind is the aspect of what measures government should actually be undertaking to ensure that youths, men and women in the country, their literacy levels begin to improve. What do you think should be the necessary steps that government should now begin to consider?
Well, of course, the assistant director is best placed to answer that question. But from where I sit,
but you can make proposals.
Yes, from where I sit,
yes.
From where I sit, I think it is very important that we start revisiting the affirmative action, you know, policies that we've had, for instance, at every level, to ensure that the boy is not left behind. We are also mindful that if we have too many, you know, girls who are married, who are educated, they will have no one to marry them, because then the boys will be illiterate. So let's carry along their future husbands, who are the boys as well, in terms of we start addressing the issues, especially that are confronting or confounding the boys alone, and that is very important. Things like child labor. So if you look at statistics for child labor, whether in mining, child labor in agriculture, child labor in industries, you find that there are more boys that are in there. There are more boys also involved in fishing at a young age in some of these provinces, you know, heading cattle, you know, and doing activities that stop them from going to school. So what we are saying is that can we start factoring, those issues in our planning so that we can be able to catch those out of school children and bring them in school, whether they are boys or girls. That really becomes very important, even as we think of ensuring gender equity.
I'm glad that you are able to make that submission, because in the first place you are telling me that the ministry is better placed. But yes, the Ministry of Education is better placed, and we're back to you. What is the Ministry of Education? What measures are they taking to ensure that literacy is improved among youths, women, men in the country?
I think, yes, we can still emphasize that the Ministry of Education exists for everyone. And reflecting on our provisions, I'm here to indicate that we have opportunities for everyone to learn and pick it up at any stage. Of course, I would start with maybe the young ones, the learners at ECE going up. We have that avenue up to secondary education here. At least one factor that you find, that is there will be a school in that area. This is how far we have gone. So our desire is that in every 5 kilometers radius we have a school. And how are we placed like that? It's to give opportunities to ensure that this important asset is given to our people, to the citizenry. And that is for the aged 3 to 18 years. So doors are opened for them to start school and complete. But again, as Ministry of Education, we are very much aware that along the way, someone may miss it, may drop out due to these issues we've talked about, the factors. But again, an opportunity is given to them to say, come back and we shall give you again an opportunity to learn. And this is through the Directorate of Open and Distance Education, where this afternoon, we are propagating issues of youth and adult literacy. To say, just come and get this, acquire this skill to enable you to read, to write, so that you can function in society, you can participate in governance issues, you can do your entrepreneurship, because you are able to measure, you are able to interpret simple things just for your livelihood. But for those who would want to aspire to get on into the educational ladder and go even attain tertiary education, again, we have those opportunities through what we call open learning, through what we call distance education. The avenue is there. In fact, we also have what we call skills training provision in our schools for continuing education. The name is continuing education, so that they can continue, they can pick it up and continue. And in our 15 schools for continuing education, we do provide academic, we also provide skills, so that they are blended. I could go for academic in the morning, maybe up to 13 hours thereabout. Then in the afternoon, within the same institution, I can also enroll for a skill. Just acquire that skill, so that when I pass out of that institution, I'm equipped with my academic sound education, but I've also acquired a skill. And this is purely by government and the Ministry of Education. So for us, we are here to say education is there for you, education is available wherever you are. Just knock a door at a school and they will explain everything, or come to headquarters or call us, as we are here to ensure that I'm here propagating these issues, because I went to school as a girl child, and I would want the same also, even better, to get to another person, because we know illiteracy has challenges. I remember one person approaching us to say, I'm unable to take my child to school because I'm poor, so it means that that particular child will also be in the same category like me as a parent, and eventually the whole clan will be like that. So we want to break this chain, this cycle of vicious poverty, the vicious cycle of poverty. And education is an equalizer. Education is a genuine investment which we can give to any human being here in our country and beyond.
Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed in terms of the achievements as well as measures that you're putting in place as the Ministry of Education. But we know something, one of the big elephant that we have today as well is the issue relating to climate change. So what's the importance when it comes to creating climate change education and environmental sustainability through literacy?
Thank you very much. Earlier on we talked about our curriculum, and curriculum points to the fact that you have specific content that you would want to be given, to be churned out to the beneficiaries. So part of our curriculum for our youth and adult literacy learners is issues to do with climate. Sustainable education is embedded in their curriculum. But beyond youth and adult literacy, even for every learner, we have issues of environment, issues of sustainable development enshrined in the curriculum, which comes in career subjects such as environmental science, career subjects such as social and development studies, and many other subjects. They carry issues of sustainability. Really, like today, we saw that there were floods in Libya, and we are aware that in my geography studies, Libya, around that area, is the Sahel desert or the Sahel region, which is impacted by, of course, the issue of the desert. So how can a desert all of a sudden experience floods, and where it is very catastrophic for the people there? So issues of climate change are really not very far away from us. They are with us. And hence for us in education, we are the carrier of messages of sustainable development. And if you look at our theme for this year, it even says laying a foundation for sustainable and peaceful societies. A peaceful society is where I would want to have the climate that is favorable. Right now we know that we used to say this is the hot dry season, hot wet season, yeah, and the rains would come around October. I'm sure maybe by August they are about the first rains, but now we have to wait until somewhere in December, or we don't even know, we can't even, of course predictions will always be there. So issues of climate change, sustainable development should now be very urgent and should be with us. And as education, we are talking about that. We are sleeping on that. We are eating that to ensure that we inculcate those values and the skills to ensure that we conserve what we have, so that even the generation to come will find the beautiful and peaceful society as we have enjoyed it ourselves. And this message is carried in our curriculum because that is the delivery system, that is where the content is, to give messages through our facilitators, the teachers, the lecturers, and many others like us here.
Even before we close, Mr. Hamsunda, your brief concluding remarks.
Well, my remarks actually are around the financing of adult literacy, or the Directorate of Distance Education, at the ministry. We have seen over the years in our budget analysis that it does not receive adequate funding to be able to address the concerns. I want to put on record that the future, of our country as it regards, education, lies on the parents, lies on the youth. And if we cannot invest to ensure that our youth can have productive skills, our youth can live in an environment that has changed, as you have heard, our youth can appreciate, the impact of climate change now and start, making a contribution to mitigate the impact of climate change, then we are going nowhere. Because climate change is not only following those who have been to school, it has come for everyone. So, and we don't have an opportunity for those that will not be in the formal curriculum. How do we reach them? It's only through adult literacy. If we are to conserve our natural resources, if we are to ensure that the very earth that we are living on continues to sustain us, then we really need to invest in adult literacy. And I hope that even as we go into the 2024 budget, I know a lot already has been done, And we have been singing about this ourselves through our submissions to Ministry of Finance and Education. We hope a lot of resources are going to be seen in this department to ensure that it can have a lot of influence beyond that which we are having, in the formal, school setup.
I've been having a conversation with Ministry of Information, Ministry of Education rather, Assistant Director, Directorate of Open and Distance Education, that is DODE, Madam Imut Kalmiana, as well as the Zambia National Education Coalition Executive Director, Mr. George Hamsunga, just helping us to understand all issues relating to literacy in Zambia. We know we're in the Literacy Week, where on the 8th of September, the country or the world at large was celebrating the International Literacy Day. Thank you so much for keeping us company. Thank you so much for choosing Camnet TV. A big shout out to Given Brian Luwinda. I was almost saying Given Luwinda from Zingalume, who's watching us via our Facebook platform. And we say thank you to everyone else that was able to catch through this edition of the Lunchtime Cafe right here on Camnet TV. Remember to keep it on Camnet TV, not just another channel. I've been your host, Nelson Zulu. See you tomorrow.